Broadcasting from Baltimore, Maryland, this is 5x3 Radio, where strength is for everyone. I'm your host, Emily Sokolinski, owner of 5x3 Training, a strength and conditioning gym in Baltimore, along with my co-host, Rebecca Fishburne, founder of Cornerstone Strength Maryland. Each week, Rebecca and I will discuss the ins and outs of strength training, why there is a no one-size-fits-all approach, and why strength is so important in our daily lives. Thanks for spending some time with us today. Now, on with the show. All right, so hi everybody, and welcome back to 5x3 Radio with Rebecca. We have a very special guest with us today on our podcast. One of my 5x3 members has so kindly joined us to discuss his training over the past 2 years here at 5x3. So I'm going to turn it over to Manny. Introduce yourself, sir, and give us an idea of who you are, and we're going to take it from there. So
all right.
nice and quick, okay. Right into it.
All right, so my name is Manny Rechthand, and I'm 74 years old. I'm a retired physician. I used to be a neurologist. I'm still a neurologist, but I don't practice anymore. But I used to be a practicing doctor, and I've been training in 5x3 for about 2.5 years. I initially started, what happened was that I've always been interested in exercise. Not sure exactly why, but I've been exercising. No, really, I mean, I don't know why, because I know that not everybody likes it.
It's good for you.
No, not everybody likes it. Like, when I was young, I played sports, but I was never a great athlete. I enjoyed sports, but I enjoy exercise more than sports, which I've come to see is a whole separate type of athletic activity. I've never separated that before until very recently, that you don't have to enjoy playing football to enjoy exercise, and people who enjoy football don't necessarily like to exercise. I like to exercise. I like to use my body, and I've always done that. I used to swim a lot. I started out swimming 30, 40, 50 years ago even, and then I injured my shoulder. I had to stop that, but I've always enjoyed exercise itself. About a couple of years ago, I got introduced to barbell training, and I decided to pursue it by I stumbled across a book called Starting Strength by Mark Ripito. Mm-hmm. And it was a real eye-opener. It was a mind opener. I had never read a book like that before.
So tell everybody how old you were when you discovered this book, when you started reading this book.
I guess probably I started reading it when I was around 71.
So you just turned 74 in October.
Right.
So you started training, like kind of officially, seriously training about 2.5 years ago. Yeah. When you were just turned 72. Is that correct?
A little before that, but because I started with the book a little before that. Right. But certainly I was older than 70 when I discovered that book.
So I wanted to let people know that. So yeah, Rebecca.
And then I'm also curious, Manny, because I mean, you've just given one example of the type of exercise that you enjoyed doing before the swimming. But had you done weight training previously, or had you primarily done more cardiovascular exercise?
Well, I started out with swimming. Over the years, I've been going to gyms where I've done some weight training, but never really knowing what I was doing. I was trying to do it on my own. And I realized in retrospect that, it was really silly to do that, because in weight training, if you don't know what you're doing, you're probably harming yourself more than helping yourself. And I've had some personal training before, and again, in retrospect, unless you get trained by somebody who knows what they're doing, you're probably harming yourself more than doing yourself any good. I had been going where I was really introduced to barbell training in any formal sense was I was doing CrossFit for a while. And I started that in my, when I was, probably just before I was around, just after I turned 65. So I was doing,
Nice.
yeah, I was certainly one of
The oldest.
the older people doing that. But as I said, I've always been or frequently been the oldest person around because I just again, I'm going to say I can't understand why. I just like exercise.
Yeah, you like moving your body. Yeah.
So I started with that. And again, the CrossFit training, it's very useful in that they do often introduce you to barbell training. But again, barbell training is so unique that you really need to be taught how to do it by somebody who specifically has both the proper training and experience to do that. And I'm not saying that just because I'm on a podcast with you, Emily. I mean, what I want to clarify here is that I'm sort of a serious person,
Yes.
and the reason I agreed to do the podcast was, first of all, I'm not going to try to sell anything. I'm not going to try to tell anybody that that what I say is the truth. I'm simply going to discuss my own experience with it and my own understanding of it. And that one of the reasons I'm doing the podcast is that by talking about it, I found that I understand myself. I get a better understanding of what it is I'm doing and what I've accomplished. So this is all my own experience. And I'm going to pick up again about the idea that I picked up the book. And I would say that that book is one of the best books ever written on a subject. And since I've come from a background, I've had a lot of years of schooling, I would say that that's a reasonably good recommendation on my part. I've read a lot during my life, and I'm not going to tell you it is equivalent to, great books written by Charles Dickens or Herman Melville, but I have to say to you that Mark Ripito, he is a controversial figure, but Mark Ripito has written, in my opinion, well, it's not my opinion, I'm just saying, he's written the best exercise book I've ever read, because for me, the criteria for a good book, a good nonfiction book, a good book that is trying to give you some truth and facts, is that when you read it, each line is packed with information. And that book is packed with information so that after you've been introduced to the program and after you've been doing it, you can go back and you can look at a sentence, say, oh, that's what he means by that, and see that he said it. So that's all I'm going to say about the book. I'm going to say that what happened with the book and what happened with my experience is that I misunderstood the purpose of that book, and that I thought the book was telling me this is the way you have to do it, and it's my way or the highway. And I tried to replicate what was said in the book, and I quickly hit a wall, meaning that not only did I plateau on the amount I could lift, but I plateaued on how to do it. I just couldn't really make myself do what the book said, even though I knew intuitively that the book was speaking the truth. So that's when
Okay. Yeah. So there's this. So go ahead.
At that point, are you self-trained? You've read the book and you're implementing what you've read on your own, or are you?
I've tried on my own. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I tried on my own, and I rapidly, over a period of, maybe I'd say a couple of months, just hit a wall. And I hit a wall first on the squat. I hit a wall also very early on in the bench press. And the deadlift, I didn't hit that much of a wall, but I didn't know what I was doing. So that's when I contacted Emily. I found that she is a starting strength coach. I liked the method, and I thought I would explore it. I wasn't sure whether I was going to stick with it. She brought me into the gym, and I initially trained with one of her trainers, Jay Mond, who was a wonderful person, a wonderful trainer. But because of scheduling difficulties, I couldn't continue with him. And that's when my 2.5 years with Emily really began. Okay, that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. That's exactly it. So were you training at the CrossFit gym, Manny, when you were initially working on the program yourself?
No, because that coincided with the onset of COVID, and so I couldn't go to the gym anymore. And
got it.
As I'm going to say across this podcast, is that I'm a religious man, and so Emily knows that I'm going to say some things that maybe other people are going to say, wow, what a strange human being. But I'm a religious man, and I really, really believe that what happened to me was God-driven. Okay, that I came across Emily because through God leading me to her. And I say, people who are not religious, I get it, but I am, and so I attribute all of what's happened to me to being in the hands of God, and all my progress in the hands of God. And I regard Emily as a messenger of God. I really do. And
I remember.
Yeah, and I'm giving her, and I'm not just making that cliche. And I know some people listening to it who are not religious are going to go, "Wow, he's making Emily into like a prophet." No, but Emily is a
yes.
I have a really wonderful relationship with Emily, and I think that Emily is, as I've told her on multiple occasions, an extremely virtuous person, and I feel lucky that I stumbled across her.
Well,
we did not go over this prior to the podcast.
Right.
I mean, honestly, though, that's reminding me of, I cannot remember her name. Emily, who is the, it's like a female record holder who starts all of her lifts with like,
oh, Susie. Yeah, Susie. Yeah. Susie Hartwood Gary. Yes.
Yeah. It's you and me, God. Yeah. So I don't think that sounds strange at all,
okay,
Manny.
Good.
No, Susie's extremely religious, and I think she puts a lot of faith in God, and God definitely drives her training and her husband too.
I
mean, they are not.
Well, it drives me also.
Yeah. It does, and I think that we have had many. I mean, Manny and I have had many discussions over the past 2.5 years at the gym, and I think it's important. That's a part of who you are, and that's what drives your own personal journey too. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with with that, and with speaking and being true to that.
Yeah.
I think that's an important part of who you are, and you have to be, and that's an important part of your training. I can still remember the conversation that we had, you and Esther and I had. I'm sitting at my dining room table, talking and getting you situated and getting you set up with Jay 2.5 years ago, and it's been incredible to watch the growth in you and your wife.
Yes.
During this time.
My wife joined the gym shortly after I did, and we've both been training. And again, I'm sure we're going to discuss this in the next hour. But both of us have made remarkable progress.
Remarkable.
And we can talk about me first, but later on, if you want, I can talk a little about my wife.
So that was a perfect introduction to give kind of people an idea of where you were, with exercise, how you came to train with us,
Right.
how you came to barbell training. So let's start to talk about where you are now in your journey. You just came back from Florida.
So let me kind of like take it over. I think I can do it pretty concisely and get across the points. So when I started out, first of all, in general, barbell training, just like any particular athletic activity, will attract certain body types. Football will naturally attract the larger person. Basketball will attract the taller person. Swimming will attract a different type of body type to it. That doesn't mean that a short person can't be a good basketball player. It just means that in general, what's going to be successful is going to be a combination of what the particular athlete brings to the sport versus the particular challenges that sport brings. So barbell training is going to attract the larger person, because the larger person is going to be stronger. And first of all, I'm going to say, just to show you I do know a little about what I'm talking about. It's going to sound silly to say it, but it has to be emphasized over again. The purpose of barbell training is to make you strong. Okay?
Yes.
That what may seem obvious may not be obvious to everybody, that everybody has to remember that the purpose of the barbell training is to make you strong. And strong is good. No matter what you do, strong is good, it's a good word, whether you are strong in your psychologically strong in personality, strong in physically, strong is a positive trait. So the larger person is going to be naturally stronger in the absolute sense. And so and the reason I'm mentioning that is I happen to be a small person. Okay, I'm a small person. And the first thing, if you're a young small person, barbell training will tell you, well, you better become a large person, meaning that if I were young today, I would do the mantra. I would follow the mantra of lift, eat, and sleep. Yeah.
Right.
You have to lift to provide the body with the proper stress so it can grow. You have to eat to provide the nutrition so it can grow, and you have to sleep meaning you have to rest in between in order to allow that growth to take place. I tried that initially. So I initially gained 20 pounds, but because I'm over 70, the 20 pounds all went to fat. So I was in reasonable shape when I started out, and I went into unreasonable shape my first few months. So I realized that wasn't going to be for me. So what I did was...
This is after you've read the book.
After I read the book.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say that sounds like a lot of people, like when they're reading the book and implementing it on their own. I don't think you missed the point of the book at all.
Yeah. So the problem is, and that's the problem with the book in general, that the book, and it needs to be understood that the book will only provide you with a very, very rough outline. And both the strong point of the book and the weak point of the book is it teaches you about the lifts, but each point in the lift has to be individualized. And that has to come from somebody who understands the book, meaning a proper trainer. So anyway, getting back to me. So I gained weight and I started lifting, training, and my lifts were going up, but they were going up still a bit slow. And when I looked at myself, I didn't like the way I looked. I was just, fat. I wasn't really that strong for the amount of fat that I had. So I decided that I realized that that, again, this was only one point of the book. And I said, this is not going to be for me, meaning this type of approach. So what I decided to do is I said, first of all, if you're young or even if you're middle-aged, I think you should have some fat on you. I think fat is of benefit.
Absolutely.
Because it will give you the proper energy and proper, if you will, if what I'll call it, environment for your muscles to grow. And I would imagine that having some fat on you is also important for the kind of hormones that your body is producing. Good hormones, in other words, not bad, good hormones that will allow you to grow. So, but, there's always a trade-off, okay? If you get too fat, then what you're doing is you're carrying around extra weight that is not helping you be strong. So as is true in all of life, I don't have to tell anybody, it's a balance. You have to, you have to kind of find a balance between having enough nutrients on you to help you grow and not having too many there that you're storing a lot of fat, which will help you not be as strong as you can. Now,
we've talked about that. Rebecca and I have talked about that before upon the podcast about, do I need to gain weight in order to get stronger? And often it's, well, it depends. It depends on who you are, your body type, your goals, and and your age. A young 17-year-old, yes, should be eating and lifting and eating as much as possible. A 70-year-old needs to eat within reason for his or her ability to gain strength, build muscle, and it's going to be completely different. It's a completely different thing.
So I'm going on with my journey. I haven't forgotten why I'm here. So what happened then was that I was lifting, and what I discovered, the difference between the book and what a coach does for you is the book mentions a lot of ideals about where your knees should be during the squat, where your butt should be during the deadlift, where the bar should be coming down on your chest. And you try at least I try to look like the book, and I was hitting a wall. And when Emily, when you took over, you made me realize that that's an ideal and it has to be made for the individual. So once I got that concept under, then I began to make progress with my lifts, okay? And in addition, like I said, I decided that, and I began to also realize, and this is, I think, a very important point for anybody that does barbell training. If you're training next to someone who is 20 years younger than you and weighs 80 pounds more than you, and you're trying to do a bench press that's going to equal his, well, you really have been misled, okay? You're basically punishing yourself physically and psychologically. So what rather you have to do is you have to understand that strength, the way we measure it, is both an absolute term and a relative term. So if you want to talk about absolute strength, yes, I want to have a 350-pound, 6'8" man help me move furniture, okay? That guy is going to definitely be able to lift a lot more than me. But in terms of who I want to be absolutely strong. And what I mean by that is the ant can lift 6 times its own weight. An elephant can only lift twice its own weight. So in relative terms, the ant is stronger. And since I am a smaller person, I want to be a strong ant. And that's what I've accomplished. So what happened was I started training, and when I was heavier, I hit certain lifts. So for example, I was able to go up to about 220 pounds on my squat. I was able to go to 145 pounds on my bench press, and I was able to go to about 305, 310 pounds on my deadlift. Then what? But I weighed at that point 181 pounds. Now,
and how tall are you?
I'm 5'4".
Yeah.
So I was not overly fat, but I was chunky.
Sure.
And what happened is the eye opener for me was when I went up to over 180 pounds. I went to my doctor. My blood pressure was out of control. He said to me, "What are you doing? I mean, you're you're supposed to be an intelligent person. What are you doing?" So I had to admit that it wasn't very intelligent. So then what I did, I decided to be realistic, and my goal was to become not only strong, but to become fit. And that's where my journey really began. I put myself on my own kind of nutritional plan. I lost a lot of weight over the ensuing 2 years. I lost a lot of weight, and so what happened is my bench press did go down a little. Now I am hovering around the bench press of 100 and around 27, 128 pounds, which is about 15 pounds less than I was doing when I weighed 180. But now I weigh 130. So now I am able to almost, if not able to lift my own weight, whereas before I couldn't do that.
Yeah. And Manny, I'm not a tall person either. And so one of the things that I always really appreciated with barbell training, which you are describing, is if you take your weights and factor your lifts by the Wilks score, or even if you get the age McCullough coefficient figured in there, and sort of think about your weights in those terms, which is what happens in meets, and what you're describing, the difference between the elephant and the ant. And I think that a lot of times is just really empowering for people to know, like, I can lift my body weight regardless of.
It's really, it's an amazing feeling, but it's not only going to have a unique type of body, a unique type of anatomy and physiology that they're going to be able to do one part of the lifting better than the other. My body just fit very well into the deadlift. And so my deadlift, even though I lost a lot of weight, my deadlift kept on progressing and progressing. Right. So to kind of end it in a nutshell, after 2.5 years of training, what I did was I did, for some reason, about 6 months ago, a little earlier actually, I became interested in competition, and we can talk about that later on. I'm not going to go into detail why I became interested, but I became interested in competition, and I decided to do what I would call really an insane thing at my age, to compete, because most competitors who are older have been training for 20, 30, 40 years. So my decision to compete was really pretty a little off, but I don't regret it. So I decided to compete, and I went to a couple of meets, and I did very well. And so as Emily said, I just came back about 3-4 weeks ago from a meet in Florida. And at that meet, I set the American record for the deadlift for my age and weight class. Now that's a really big deal.
That's amazing.
Yes. When he told me his plan was to go to Florida and compete and break the American record, I went, okay, we can try that. Sure. And we had a lot of discussion about training and programming, and
it went up and down and bumpy, but I did it. Now,
you did it.
Now, let me get to the main thing. Competing and having the record obviously feels amazing, okay? But I'm telling you, I'm being honest with you, for me, the competition, going to competition, is probably due to my own what you would call inner demons, my own psychological insecurities, that I felt the need to compete. That's not true for everybody. I'm talking about for me. There's no need to compete if you do barbell training. Absolutely none. And in fact, I enjoy barbell training much better outside of the meet than I do for the meet. Barbell training can be very enjoyable. It becomes less enjoyable for me anyway when I have to compete, but because you're not able to really do what barbell training is supposed to be, which is go on a program where you are gradually getting stronger and stronger. Because when you compete, the program you're doing is really a program of displaying your strength as opposed to allowing yourself to get stronger. So what I'm trying to get across is that having the record feels great, but that's not what barbell training, the benefits of it, is really about. So let me just backtrack a little. When I came into doing the program with Emily, my knees ached. I had all kinds of knee aches. And after 2.5 years, I have some knee aches. They didn't fully go away, but my knees feel so much better. I used to be able, when I walked down the steps, my knees would just really hurt me, probably due to a whole bunch of tendinopathies there. And I'm not going to tell you it was a cure-all. My knees still bother me, but after 2.5 years of training, they probably bother me less, okay? And that's number one. Number two, what the training has done for me is it's really transformed me, okay? And I use that word, I was very careful why I'm using that word. Before I used that word, I was very careful about it, what I was going to say. It's completely transformed me, not only physically, but mentally. And the reason I'm saying that is that when I was growing up, as I said, I wasn't a great athlete. If you ask any man, men tend to have a lot of macho about them. Every man, I don't care what you say. Every man has this mind. And many women also feel the need to kind of be a bit macho. And the reason, so if you ask any man what kind of athlete he was when he was young, 90% will say, I wasn't a great athlete, but I was okay. And if you ask, that means that there are hardly any men in the world that were bad athletes, because according to everybody,
they were okay.
Everybody was okay. That's like, saying that, when you have children. Oh, and let me say something else before introduce a little. I'm married, been happily married for over 40 years. I have 4 children. I have grandchildren. So I am a regular kind of guy. I love my family, and they come first. So let me get that out of the way, that I'm a regular person doing barbell training. Okay. So having said that, so if you ask, so just like we say about all of our children, if you have children, you say, yeah, my child is intelligent, he just doesn't put in the effort. So according to that, there are no unintelligent children in the world, and there are no unathletic men in the world. Now, that's not true, okay?
Of course not.
So I'll say that I was probably on the other side of the athletic scale, meaning, and again, I don't want to say I'm a bad athlete, but I wasn't a great athlete. And going forward in my life, I never regarded myself as an athlete. And that was okay. We all can't be athletes. I never regarded myself as an athlete. And I think that that is because athletics in the United States and around the world is judged by certain sports. Like in America, we allowed football and basketball and baseball because those are things that people like to watch. And you'll find that most people who like those sports don't play them. They like to watch them. So, and if somebody calls himself an athlete, it means he's good at watching somebody else perform, you know? Okay. But but what the weightlifting has done for me, the powerlifting, I'm an athlete.
Yeah.
And the definition of an athlete is somebody who trains to become strong and agile. I am a true athlete.
Yes.
And that has been one of the major changes in the way I look at myself that this has done for me. So now, even if I didn't compete, I'm an athlete because I can do something that is just incredible.
Yes.
And so when I walk around now, I walk around as an athlete. Now, what does that mean? Okay. You used the word before that I don't like. The word is empower. Okay. But it's a word I don't like because it's overused. But what I think it means is that, for me anyway, it means that I look at myself differently. Now, since I am a small man, okay, let's say tomorrow that I'm on the street, and I grew up in a pretty rough neighborhood in New York City when I was young, and I was constantly being confronted with my own, what I would call, weakness. You know, I went to a rough school, got picked on, was bullied, and it's a problem for a lot of kids. Bullying has been around forever. Yep. So I was bullied. Sometimes I fought back a little, sometimes I didn't, but I felt vulnerable. And I felt that I was always had to be on the lookout. And I'm sure, and I'm going to say something again, I don't know, but I'm sure women feel like that all the time because this is a world where physical power seems to play a big role. So I am a smaller person and I've been bullied in my life. And as an adult, I've had certain confrontations on the street where the other guy was just bigger than me and I had to walk away. Now, what this has done for me is I am a different person than I was 2 years ago.
Right.
In other words, yes, I'm small. God made me small. And that's just the way he made me. But just because I'm small doesn't mean that I'm less of a person. No, I'm just as powerful a person as the big guy. And I have my own unique abilities. And I may win a fight against him. But the point is, if I don't, it doesn't mean that I am not an amazing athlete.
Right.
I'm an amazing athlete because I am strong.
I keep thinking about, as you're using the word athlete, Sully, I'm thinking about Dr. Sullivan, right, in his book, The Barbell Prescription. I mean, and that's exactly what he emphasizes in his book, that he works only with athletes who are 50 and older. Right? That's who he works with. He doesn't work with younger people. He strives to make them see the athleticism that they have, right? That they can be more and get stronger and do more than what they think they can and help themselves have a better quality of life. And athlete, that word athlete, is throughout his book. His book, right? I mean, and that's that he calls them athletes of aging, but I just see them as athletes. I mean, we're doing something, especially people who train consistently and who train intelligently and who can speak about their training. I think, and that's what you're doing. You're about your own training.
And actually, I'm more than just an athlete. I'm a really amazing athlete.
Yes.
Now, what does that mean? Okay, I have. I'm not going to mention who it is. I have a relative who's a really good baseball player, and he's very good. And I think, though, that he regards being an athlete is being able to throw a ball, catch a ball, run fast, and and if you can't do those things, you're not an athlete. Well, that is again a culturally narrow definition of an athlete, because there are some amazing swimmers in the world that probably can't catch a baseball to save their lives, but they are just amazing. And they're amazing athletes in different sports, but we have a very narrow view of an athlete. So it's true, there are going to be some people who are amazing baseball players who are not great power lifters. And that's okay, because, an athlete is a person who can do something. He doesn't have to be great at it.
That's right.
So I happen to be good at one particular lift, and I'm very good at it for my age. But even if I weren't, I'd still be an athlete. And somebody who trains in barbell training will become an athlete no matter what. Okay, that's important. That's a point. So getting back to what I was saying. So the most important change for me that this training has done is really the psychological aspect. I have to say, more than the physical. Okay, I can do remarkable things. And one of the really nice things about barbell training, the squat, the bench press, the overhead press, and the deadlift are true compound lifts. And that means that you have to use multiple muscles to achieve the lift. And in so doing, you not only train each muscle to get stronger, but more importantly, you train them to work in a coordinated manner, meaning you're training your nervous system to do these things together. And that's very important in everyday functioning. As we know, the word functional skills are overused, because somebody who is doing biceps curls alone and, just doing for the biceps to make them bigger, we say, well, yeah, I'm doing functional training. You need big biceps. And I would argue to say, the function may be to look nice, but you got to tell me what the function of having a 25-inch biceps and not being able to stand up straight is. Okay.
Right.
So the beauty of the barbell training is that it's used to teach, to what I would call train the body to do what it's naturally been created to do. Now, the big question comes, if God created this beautiful body, which he did, why doesn't it just maintain itself without doing training? That is an existential question that I can't answer.
For another podcast.
But I can answer it in a nutshell.
Yes.
The world is created to both move forward towards order and immediately to be destroyed backwards. And it's a job of the human being to keep it in its order. So when God gave you your beautiful body, he didn't say you can just sit back and it'll do its own. No. As you get older, if you don't use your body properly, it's going to naturally deteriorate. And especially as when you reach old age, if you don't use the functional abilities that are God-given to you, they're going to stop working. Because for some reason, and I'm not questioning God, he said, if you're not willing to stress yourself, I'm not going to help you along. So that means if you're going to sit in front of your TV set, drink beer all night, eat a lot of cake, and expect yourself to be able to do all the activities you want to do, well, then you're living in a world that I don't know what exists.
So
Okay.
I'm looking at the time, and I want to make sure that we touch on
Yeah.
some other points. But first thing I want to say is we need to take you on the road. So Rebecca, you and I need to figure out a way to take Manny on the road and have some like do talks, because what you're saying needs to reach so many more people than our podcast reaches, because it's we can say it so many times, but I really like listening. I mean, I listen to you all the time. We talk all the time, but what you're saying, I'm thinking, wow, how many people need to hear this. I mean, it's something that we've said over and over again, but it's like taking you on the road to really reach people and say, this is about quality of life. It's about aging well. It's about your body and taking care of what you have.
You have to help yourself along, both the way you eat and what you do. And it has to be hard. It's not going to be easy. And if it's not hard, then you're probably not doing it correctly. You have to stress the system to maintain it and have it grow. That means you have to stress your mind and you have to stress your body. And now I'm going to say, and what happens is, if you do that, I actually find the stress itself to be enjoyable. I know that's hard to understand, but the stress itself becomes pleasurable. Meaning, yes, when I'm at the bottom of a squat and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get out, that doesn't feel good. But what happens is when you get up and afterwards, it is a feeling that you cannot replicate by any other activity. Right. So therefore, I'm saying again, because I know time is limited, doing the barbell training has transformed who I am. And I am I look at myself differently. I look at other people differently. And I've become, again, this is strange to understand, I've become a lot smarter. I'm more intelligent after 2.5 years of barbell training than I was before. Now, I can't explain that. In other words, I am actually more intelligent than I was 2.5 years ago. And I went through so many years of schooling. I mean, it's absurd. So I've become more intelligent. I've become a nicer person. And the reason for that is because I'm more confident in who I am, I now no longer have to kind of like be kind of put up a front. I'm a nicer person because I am more confident in who I am. I'm a better husband. I'm just a better person. And that's what the training has done for me. I'm going to take it over to you. You can ask questions. That's
interesting to think. I want to go back to just when you're talking about that you feel you're more intelligent, but you're nicer. We talk a lot about the confidence, right? But we never say what having more confidence or more self-esteem actually can transforms you and makes you a different person. We just kind of like leave it at that. So it's interesting to hear that side of it. I don't think we've ever talked about that.
Well, Rebecca, I think what happens is when you get bullied, or when you try to build up your self-esteem, I think it's an inborn human trait that, and I do it myself still, we tend to, number one, humans compare themselves to other humans. It's a tough thing not to do, but we do it. And, you have to figure out, how am I going to do this in an intelligent, nice manner that's going to benefit me and not harm the other person? So we compare ourselves to other humans, and quite often we build up our self-esteem by kind of degrading the other person, saying, oh, well, I'm stronger than him. But that's one thing. And then we say, and he's a weakling, or I live a better life than him. I'm a better person than he is. And if you think about it, that doesn't really make you a better person.
Right.
So to say, well, I am better than him. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go bully him to show him what a loser he is. That basically is very destructive. I don't have to bully anybody. Okay, I am I don't have to bully anybody. I have great confidence in myself now and again, it's intelligent confidence. I'm not going to go out and challenge anybody, even somebody my own size, could probably beat me up. But that's not what my esteem is from. My esteem comes from the fact that I am an intelligent, strong person, okay, who is loving life. I love life. I mean, I have never loved life more than I have over the last 2 years. And if you love life, well, what could be better than that? What does God want you to do? He wants you to live an ethical life, and you have to love it. And the way you love it is by, I can't give you the formula for it. For me, certainly the barbell training has been a major part of that.
I tell you, he's a postcard for barbell training. I mean, you've said questions. I feel like, you've answered so many questions that we would have asked you already. You kind of you gave it to us all in within your own.
Now I have to say, I have to say a little more. That again, I'm going to emphasize so just nobody gets the wrong idea. If somebody is going to listen to this, I would strongly advise them. And again, I'm not here to sell anything or to tell anybody how to run their life. I'm not telling you that barbell training is the only way to exercise. What tends to happen to people is that people do things and they say, well, I know the right approach. Everybody seems to have the answer. And I'm telling you right now, I've come to learn that I don't have the answer, but I have the answer for me. Okay. And what I've learned is that the answer for me is that I've trained using this method, and I've needed to have a teacher. I would say to anybody that before you undertake something like this, you need to do it under somebody's training, somebody's kind of teaching you, because you need to understand that the pathway to this is not going to be straightforward. You're going to hit a lot of roadblocks, and potentially you want to avoid injury. So if you don't mind for a second, I want to talk about another component. I know we have a short time, but I think it's an important topic.
Yeah, about pain.
Pain. Okay, so you see, when I first, having been somebody who enjoys physical activity their whole lives, I've been through multiple injuries in my life. And that's normal. Okay. In other words, I haven't injured myself more than anybody else. Anybody who participates in vigorous athletic activity is going to injure themselves. Okay.
Right.
And if you say, I'm not going to do it because I don't want to injure myself, it's not going to happen. Okay. You got to be realistic about it. Okay. That's number one. Number two, what used to happen to me is I'd say, as soon as I would feel the slightest tweak, I would step back and say, uh-oh. Now, when I feel the slightest tweak, I step back and I'm going to say, uh-oh, what does that mean? Now, in my previous life, I used to say, well, that means I have to stop doing this, have to stop it for a few days, stop it for a few weeks until the pain goes away. What I've learned is that pain is a signal, but it's not a signal to tell you that you've necessarily really done any harm to yourself. It's merely a signal to tell you, watch what you're doing, be careful, and your body is going to tell you if there's a real injury underneath. Mm-hmm. I would say over the past 2.5 years, most of the time that I've had some pain, the pain has only lasted a very short period of time in that session. Meaning, if I go down from my first squat and I feel a little twinge in my knee, in the old days, I would have said, I got to stop. Okay, now, if I feel a little twinge in my knee, I say, well, let me see what's happening here. Okay, let me go down. I'll go down gently, and in most instances, the pain goes away. I can't explain to you why that occurs. So what it is that what used to mean is that pain immediately was bad and I'd have a catastrophic reaction to it. I no longer have. Pain, the body is telling you something, but in most instances, the pain is just telling you, watch what you're doing, correct your form a little, and you're going to be fine. And so, number one, I have a much more healthy relationship with pain in the body. It no longer scares me. And I have, you must be truthful about it. I have injured myself doing this stuff. And as I said, nobody should be dissuaded from doing this training because of the possibility of injury. Injury is part of any vigorous physical activity. But what happens is when you injure yourself, what the barbell training shows you is you don't stop doing it, but you go down a little and you change the way you're doing it. And really what's very interesting is that if you watch the progress of physical therapy over the past few years, physical therapists have now gradually come on board to this approach. Because it used to be when you went online and read some things physical therapists write, they write, as soon as you get a pain, apply cold and stop doing everything you do for the next 10 years. Okay? Because you got to get better. That's no longer the approach. And the reason that's no longer the approach is because it makes no sense. In other words, what you want to do is, if you get a slight injury, you need to let the body function with that injury so that it will heal itself in a way that will allow you to do the movement. But if you don't do the movement, the body will never learn to heal itself and allow you to function onward. So that is barbell training. Barbell training, when done by a well-educated coach, as I've had, will teaches you that injury and pain are actually teaching lessons to tell the body to move forward and continue doing it, but in a slightly different manner. So what happens is that as you go through these injuries or little painful episodes and you continue, you find that you're functioning beautifully, you're stronger, and you still get a little pain. But pain no longer stops you from functioning. It no longer gives you you're no longer the person who is a slave to pain. And having gone through that, I also have to tell you that when you go to your doctor, okay, I'm a doctor, so I can say this. I can talk like a doctor. I was a doctor. And when I say I was a doctor, it doesn't mean I was a doctor of the French language, okay? I was a medical doctor, okay? I took care of sick people. And what I've learned is that, I went, I suffered a knee injury years ago, and my doctor said to me, don't you squat, okay, never squat again. And it wasn't from squatting, I got it from roller skating with my grandkids. He said, don't you ever squat, okay, because squatting is horrible for you. And, I listened to him at the time. And when I started barbell training, I started squatting and I said, oh my goodness, what is he going to think? Well, if he saw me today, I think he would faint, okay? Because at the time he saw me, I could only squat, do like a little few inches. I'm squatting now consistently. I don't know if your listeners understand, you can explain to them. I'm squatting consistently below parallel.
Oh yeah, they know what that means.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Meaning I go down deep and I come up And anybody who sees me, when I go to these meets, one of the reasons I like going to a meet, to be honest with you, it's just, you have to be 74 years old to experience this. I walk into a meet and, you know, people look at me, like I say to Emily, I joke with her, they almost like want to go over and push me to see if I'm like real, because here's this little old man with a beard walking in this funny looking, you know, suit that we wear when we go to the meets, and they go, you know, how old are you? And I go 74, and they look at me, you know, what? I mean, you know, they're stammered. So I like to see the reaction, and when I walk out on stage, like nobody knows what to expect. Okay, and it doesn't matter what I lift. That's the amazing thing. When I go down for my first squat, I could do it with a feather and people would like cheer. When I go down and do my first below parallel squat, wow. I mean, if people were not held up by sitting in a chair, I think everybody would fall over. Because watching an old man do a below parallel squat is about the most amazing thing you can see in the world. Okay, so I like to go to meets just for that reaction. Okay, so that is some
truth be told, this is the reason he competes.
Yeah, I like
to astound people.
What say? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Oh, I just said the purpose is to astound people.
Yeah, it's astounding. And, you know, like we talked about my wife before. So what happened to my wife, I'm just going to briefly deal with it. And then I know we're going to have to cut it off at some point. Yeah. I'll leave it up to you. My wife had injured herself we had both done the cross training together. She injured her knee during cross training, you know, doing box squats. Now, I'll be honest with you, I was doing box squats. I'm going to say this now, maybe I'll regret it later. Why a 70-year-old man should be doing box squats, you gotta convince me now. You gotta explain that to me. Why I was doing that. Okay.
What do you mean? Wait. What do you mean? Like, I mean, squatting to a box or doing box jumps?
Excuse me, box jumps.
Box jumps, yeah, because I was going to say box jumps. Let's be clear.
Box jumps, okay.
Yeah, there's no reason.
Yeah, why a 70-year-old man is doing box jumps, I don't know. And if you watch somebody, I'm just going to say for the CrossFit people, I don't want to, you know, insult them. If you watch a 70-year-old man doing a box jump, he's not really jumping. What he's doing is he's getting about 2 inches off the ground and then tucking his legs up, and he's not getting anything out of it. And the only thing he's doing is making himself look like a fool. So why I was doing box jumps and why my wife was doing box jumps, I don't know. But she injured herself. Yeah. And she worked on it, went to physical therapy. It wasn't getting any better. Eventually, she had to have surgery. She had surgery and she wasn't getting any better. And, you know, I felt so bad for her because she was always complaining about knee pain. And it was just, you know, I felt bad. I love my wife and I felt bad for her. Anyway, I convinced her to come into the gym. And when she started out with Emily, she could do a squat. She went down, you know, it's hard to describe it without a picture of it. She went down about, you know, maybe like 6 inches to begin with below where she started, or maybe a foot if she was down below. And she couldn't get much below that. She was stuck. And gradually over the 2 years, she started going deeper, adding more weight, deeper, more weight. My wife now does below parallel squatting with a more weight on her back than she weighs. And somebody looking at her from 2 years ago would say, oh my goodness, what is going on here? Okay, so what I'm really trying to say is that one of the things that I find about barbell training, and I know it sounds like I am like this evangelical about it, is that it's when you watch an old person like me or my wife, who's not as old as I am, but when you watch us do these moves, you go, what is going on here? I mean, like, how is this even possible to happen? And I would say that it's very possible. It makes perfect biological sense that you're doing what the body was made to do. It's just most people haven't been doing it, and so that's it.
Yeah.
I'll leave.
No, that's fantastic. Like I said, I mean, I don't know about Rebecca, but all the questions that we had maybe in our heads that we would ask had been answered. For the most part. Is there anything that you didn't hear that you missed? Because I mean, I want to finish off with a story too.
Yeah, I mean, I did just sort of have a question which you answered in parts throughout. I was curious about the reactions that you got from other people when you started barbell training, and you've given an example and talked about how your physician responded.
Well, a lot of people,
also your wife,
yeah,
but like
a lot of people in the beginning. I'm just saying, a lot of people in the beginning really did try to discourage me. Everybody I spoke to said, "You're going to injure yourself." That was the big thing. I don't know, Manny, you're going to, and listen, I'm not going to tell you it didn't scare me, because when, like I told Emily from the very start that I'm really an experiment, because I'm doing an experiment on myself by the whole program, the way I eat, the way I lift. I don't know, I don't know anybody else who's done what I've done, or and so it's an experiment, and I can tell you that, I'm giving you the results of the experiment. I mean,
right.
It's really amazing.
Yeah, that's interesting the way you're describing that you embarked upon this with a scientific mind. It was you started with some curiosity and a question, and like basically a hypothesis that you were testing. What will happen if I do this? Right. And maintained, it sounds like, that sense of curiosity and wonder about what would happen, as opposed to falling prey to the fears that other people were trying to offer.
You have to overcome those. And I bet you if I spoke to that person, I have in mind one person who particularly told me, a very intelligent physician who told me, Manny, you're going to injure yourself at some point. So even 2.5 years later, as he's walking around with a brace on his leg, and I'm coming in and doing below parallel squats, he's going to say to me, I don't know, Manny, I think you're going to eventually injure yourself.
Yeah, you're still saying, yeah.
And then when and if that happens, when you're roller skating with your grandchildren or doing whatever, it will get pinned on, you see, you shouldn't have been doing
I'm not going to, I would say though that, listen, whoever does this training, you need to approach it with common sense. That's the key. The biggest mistake someone can do is, and I've made all the mistakes that a person can make, like one of the things that you have to do is when you do this kind of training is, and Emily, I mean, you're going to be shocked I'm going to say this, you really need to listen to your coach.
Oh my God, I have trained him well.
Yeah, you need to listen to your coach. You can't be greedy. You have to understand that this is a long process, and that's the joy of it. If you got strong overnight, it wouldn't be as enjoyable. What it is that from week to week to week, if you do it intelligently and you don't injure yourself that much, you're going to make progress. It's a guarantee. This is one of those things that I tell my wife, that I told my daughter, I'm trying to convince my daughter to do it. I said, if you understand the basic biology of the way a human being is put together, there are certain things that a human being does that is a guarantee to work. It's guaranteed to work that if you put just the right stress on a muscle, then that muscle is going to grow. And having said that, one thing I didn't mention, which is, I'm surprised I missed it. The important thing about these lifts is that you have to understand that barbell training, whoever talks about it, or whoever listens to it, really, not the one who trains, but who listens to it, thinks that what you're training is muscle. You're doing far more than training muscle. You're training tendon, you're training bone, and you're training nervous system. So that if you do, and if you think about it, all of those systems have to respond to stress. So if you put stress on a tendon, the right amount, it's going to get stronger. If you put stress on the bone, it's going to get thicker and denser. If you put stress on the nervous system, it's going to operate better. So training like this is going to basically make you function better. And no matter what, I would say, there's no guarantee, but this is almost a guarantee.
Tell you got to take him on the road. Take you on the road.
In other words, I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm saying,
but you are. The thing is, like you are. This is after 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Think about what you have discovered about yourself.
Well, I'm an example, right?
Yeah, and you're also, you are inquisitive, and you are a reader, and you research, and you look into things. I mean, I'll say this to the listeners: Manny this is the third meet you did was in Florida, right? The recent one. He's done 3 meets already. I have had no part in any. The first 2 meets, I didn't even know he had done a meet.
Right, yeah.
He told me after the fact.
I was a little scared.
He was a little scared to tell me. I was thrilled.
I've been discouraged my whole life by other people, so I thought that I would be discouraged.
He's learned
because whenever you put your foot out to a new territory, you usually get a lot of pushback. So one thing I can tell you, though, that the difficult thing for me is that I'm so far out of mainstream that I'm a little uncomfortable by it, because it's an uncomfortable position being so far out in left field that, and as I say, that's what it's like. Like I am signed up for another meet because I have one more thing to accomplish, I think. So when I called up for that meet, the person who ran it, when he found out that I'm in the second half of my 70s, according to the meet criteria, he really encouraged me to come. He said, we rarely get 70-year-olds at these meets, and he wants more to come, because they represent a segment of the population that is ripe for doing this stuff. So, and everybody's interested in us, but they're interested in us because we look like anomalies. And the truth be told, we're not really anomalies. The only reason we're anomalies is because people are just scared to do this stuff.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I know I'm looking at the time, and I know you have to go, but I want to before we end, I want to say I worked recently with one of my members, her father, who's in his late 60s, and he has his own exercise regimen that he does at home, and he is religious about his exercising. He does it like 5 times a week. He bikes. He's a fanatic, right? But she wanted him to be introduced to the barbell training because she wanted him to add to the program he's already doing. He doesn't have a lot of dumbbells at home, but he manages his program, and he saw his doctor recently, and his doctor asked him, what are you doing for exercise? He told him, he said, I wish I could take you around and tell all my patients what you're doing, because he's such a, he's very, 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 he's very invested in it. He said to me, should I never stop doing this? When should I stop doing this? I said, never. Don't stop what you're doing. You can only add to what you're doing, right? I taught him how to deadlift, and I taught him how to bench, and he's going to add that into his program. Go to the UMBC gym. He works at UMBC. He's going to go to the UMBC gym once a week on top of the work he's doing at home. But when he said to me, how long should I keep doing this? I said, forever.
Yeah.
forever, because it's making you feel good. And he was so funny because he said, I do push-ups and I do these things where I walk out onto my hands. And I said, you mean inchworms? He said, yeah. And I said, and he just dropped down on the floor, did an inchworm. And he's probably about 6'4", so a really tall guy with real long legs, and starts doing push-ups for me. And I'm looking at this like 67, 68-year-old man who just went down to the floor and started doing a bunch of push-ups with a huge grin on his face.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people... go ahead. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like what you're talking about, you love to exercise. This man also loves to exercise. He loves the way his body feels, the way his body moves.
Let me explain to you something also. And Emily, you know this about me, and I need to say it. You know, while exercise is part of my life, it's not the only thing I do.
Right.
And it would be false to say that, because to be honest with you, exercise I regard as important, but I think that for me anyway, again, I'm just going to say this is only for me. I want to be a well-rounded, well-balanced person. So I devote a lot of my time in reading, in studying. I spend a lot of my time with my family. You know, this is only one part of my life. And so I know that there are other people, and, you know, again, everybody does what they feel they want to do and what gives them pleasure, and that's fine. For me, having this is really, for me, it helps with all of the other activities I do, because it makes me as I said before, it makes me a better person. So I'm able to do everything else. I'm able to be a better family person. I'm able to study and understand life a little better. As you know, I said I'm religious. I study a lot of religious texts, and I haven't given that up just because I do the lifting. Just the opposite. It makes it more meaningful to me to be a more rounded, healthy person. And I think I'm going to say it again, even though I knew I said I don't want to be doing this, but I seem to be harping at it, is that the concept of strength is so important. If you feel like you are strong, I don't mean strong that you can, like, you know, be like a prize fighter. I'm talking about physically and mentally strong, then it's going to spill over to your everyday life in what you do. Not only your physical activities, but your interactions with other people. It's going to make you into, and also, I guess you might say it makes you more interesting, but I wanted to hold back on that, because as you can tell, I could talk about barbell training for days on end, because it's so interesting. And what happened was I went to this meet in Florida, and it happened to be a meet where there were multiple meets happening at once. And there were a lot of lifters there. The whole facility was full of lifters, and it was a wake-up call, because over there, I was just comfortable. I could talk about lifting, and people would come over to me and talk about it, and we talked about this all the time. In my everyday life, I really can't talk to anybody about it, because people, you know, say, "Oh my God, he's talking again about it," you know. But anyway, okay, I'll stop. But you tell me what you want to talk about. Or if you want to stop, that's fine. Either way.
No, I think I'm looking at the time, and I know you've got an appointment coming up soon, so I don't want to keep you.
I'm good.
We've already gone for like over an hour and a half now.
Yeah,
so
I mean, I was just going to say, Manny, one of the things that you said initially about your motivation for joining us today on the podcast was that by telling your story, it helped you to clarify your reasons and your why for yourself. Yeah. But I think one of the really important things that comes out of you sharing your story is that for anybody who's listening, and for a lot of the people that maybe interacted with you around your lifting initially, it helps to expand their view of what the possibilities are for themselves in their own lives. And I think that's really valuable. That's a very that's another very good outcome of sharing your story. And I really appreciate that you're doing that. Thank you.
I'm almost positive that I know of our listeners, some people who members of ours or other people who I know follow us and listen to this will definitely benefit from hearing your story. Some of them have already met you, but because oftentimes they need to kind of rewire their own thinking when it comes to their training. They're older. They feel like when something hurts, they need to stop, or they don't feel like they can continue with their training, or stress. So hearing you, I think, will give them a much more, they'll be able to step back, look at their own training, and see themselves in a different light in regards to what their goals are and really why they do what they do.
One of the things I enjoy about the training, I have to say, is something I didn't deal at all with. I'll just mention briefly is I enjoy the social aspects of training. And now I have to tell you, the gym is not a place where you want to do a whole bunch of a lot of talking. I mean, I tend to talk a lot, but even there, most people who come there are quite focused, and I'm a very focused person for certain of my lifts. But it's nice to be in an environment where everybody is encouraging for the other person. That happens with lifting. Lifters are encouraging to other lifters, and that's what happens at the meets, which is one, usually, I'll be honest with you, I'm looking forward to the day when I don't go to meets anymore, because as I said, I enjoy the training and not the preparation for the meet. But one thing that I do look forward to is when I go to a meet, everybody in the room is there for the same purpose. And so there's a bit of camaraderie without a lot of talk. Everybody kind of like is on the same page. And when you go at a meet and you're in a flight, I mean, like the person behind you and the person in front of you, you're all on flitter, you're flittering around, your stomach is churning, but everybody is excited for the next person. You want the next person in front of you to do well. You want the person behind you to do well, because if they do well, you'll do well. And it's amazing phenomena. If the person in front of me fails, which happens, okay, suddenly it says to me, boy, like whereas if the person in front of me is successful, I say, I'm going to do it too. It's very, very wonderful atmosphere. Lifters are really, really very encouraging.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
And the thing about it is, and I'm going to emphasize this again, and nobody really cares how much you lift. That's really the truth. It's said, and I didn't believe it until I came to a meet, nobody really cares what you lift, okay? They just like to see you doing it. Nobody knows what's on the bar. You could come out with like one of these 2-pound weights, and if you lifted it successfully, people are going to cheer you. It's an interesting phenomenon. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I think that's, again, I think, you've answered a lot of our questions that we had, that Rebecca and I had ahead of time, just with talking about your experience and your journey. So I have no more questions. I don't know if Rebecca has questions, since I talk to you all the time.
Yeah.
And I kept saying, remember that for the podcast, remember that for the podcast.
Everything I was wondering about, Manny touched on, and then
there you go.
David on a little more with one of the.
No, this is fantastic. Good. Fantastic.
Good.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you
sharing.
Thank you for helping me understand what I'm doing so much better. I mean, it's like talking about it makes me realize, every time I talk about it, I realize more and more about, why I do it and what the benefit is, and, maybe how I can even do it better.
Yeah. Hearing other people talking about their experiences makes me remember why I do what I do. And I'm nodding my head. Nobody can see us because, but we're nodding our heads, and I'm nodding my head in agreement, because I too feel the same way. I too do know the feeling of beginning this type of program, what it has done for me physically and mentally and emotionally, and how it has benefited others in the same way, and
Right.
to hear your side of it, to hear your story, and know that Esther, I know, she may not feel the same way as you do in regards to the competition and competing, but what it has done for her, she looks forward to her sessions. She does not like to miss her strength sessions anymore. It's very important to her to stay consistent with her training because of what it has done for her.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Physically and in her life. And she, as a grandmother, is extremely busy, with grandchildren, and she's an incredible grandmother, and physically more able to, to handle all of them and all the
my wife, I mean, I'm not just saying that because she might listen, but but she's really a remarkable person, and I really love her because she truly is a wonderful person, and she has really she does really look forward to it because she has become so much healthier and physically more confident of herself, and she loves the changes that she's gone through, just like I have.
And her knee, I remember, when she started, she had just had the knee surgery, and she was doing well with Jay, and then she had a little bit of a setback, which occurs, when you're coming out of an injury and out of surgery. And when we started working together, we started real slow again. But the difference from her a year ago to now, just in everything, it just is a clear sign that this does work.
Oh,
and this is
absolutely.
So beneficial to people as long as they just give it a try and listen and are open and open-minded.
Manny's attitude starting out is really helpful.
Right.
Approach
Exactly.
with an open scientific
mind.
I'm an
Yes.
experiment. How will this play out for me?
I see it with a couple of my newer clients who I have. One who had back surgery a year ago, and what she looks like just after a month and a half of training, and how she feels, and there's no turning back now. It's just when people give it a try, when they're open, and when they come for, as you said earlier, coaching. And we know the approach that we have and the number of people that we've worked with over the years, we are confident in what we're able to do with people. And we also listen and watch.
One more thing. I know time is short, but I do have to emphasize something because you mentioned something that I really want to bring out. And this only a person like me can say. When you get older, one of the problems really I found in getting older is that gradually your horizons become limited. In other words, when I was a young man, anything was possible. And then as life went on for me, the possibilities became less, and the way I viewed myself for the possibilities became less. Like, I wasn't going to be the greatest scholar in the world. I wasn't going to be a great athlete. I wasn't going to be a great hero. They become less and less, and you learn to deal with the limitations. But I think what happens is when you get old, I'm old. That's not just simply I'm older. I am old, okay? That's the word to use. I'm old. Your horizons become so limited that it's basically you're just sitting there waiting for the end. And no, I mean, that's
I get it.
You're sitting there waiting for the end. You plant your chair out on the beach in some sunny community, and you sit there all day long, and you just wait for the end. And that's not me.
Yeah.
I am really excited about the future. I mean, who knows what I can do? My horizons are just opened up. I mean, I've accomplished things that young people haven't accomplished, and who knows what else is around the corner for me.
That's right.
I have things waiting for me that I'm going to do, and that is something that is worth and I mentioned this to Emily, that is something that's worth more than any money. I said this to Emily the other day, and I have to say it because it's something I really want to keep on telling myself. There are a couple of things in my life that I wouldn't trade in for anything. One, of course, is, my relationship to God. One is my relationship to my children. I've also spent the last 25 or 30 years learning religious texts. If you offered me all the money in the world, I wouldn't give up that experience.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm going to say something, and it's going to be hard to believe, because I can imagine that people wouldn't believe it, but I'm telling you the truth. If you offered me all of the money in the world to give in or to trade off my experience in the last 2.5 years of this powerlifting, I wouldn't give it up. I don't care. The money will do nothing for me. Okay, you can't buy what I have experienced.
Yeah.
You can't buy it. So therefore, no matter what you offer me, there's no way I would give it up. There's no way. Meaning, if it were possible to say, I'll give up that experience for all the money in the world, I wouldn't do it.
No.
It's because life is short, and no matter how wealthy you are, it's the money it won't do you anything if you don't have that inner sense of strength and peace and a sense of accomplishment. So I'm going to leave it at that.
Love it. I think we end there.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have to end there.
To end on. Thank you so much, Manny, for sharing your story.
Thank you for
Manny,
allowing me to talk. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you. I hope we talk again someday.
I hope so too. Okay. I'll see you tomorrow.
All right. Yeah. Be well. Bye-bye.
Bye, Manny. Thanks for listening to 5x3 Radio with Emily and Rebecca. If you like our show and want to know more about 5x3 training, please visit us at www.5, that's F-I-V-E, the letter X, the number 3.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram. To learn more about Rebecca, please visit her website, cornerstonestrengthmaryland.com. Thanks for listening and have a great week.